Hello guys, so today we're going to go over factoring. If you were not in class, this is mainly for you. Now I wanted to record a little earlier, but I kind of fell asleep, so I just kind of woke up right now. Alright, so let's go over factoring. Now, we're going to go over some vocabulary first. So let's go over what it's right here. I mean, you guys can stop the video, take the notes, because I'm actually going to be grading this later on this week. So vocabulary, this is the very first word. This word is pronounced trinomial, and the definition for this word is going to be an algebraic expression with three terms. Now, how does this look like? So in math, or whenever we do this problems like in class, this one's going to look like this. X squared plus 2x plus 5. Now, we have 1, 2, 3, and those are what we call terms. And how many do we have? 3. That's why we call it trinomial. So we're going to be working with quadratics. So that's the number one thing that we are going to be working on today. Now, once we know we have the quadratics, we're going to go into the second vocabulary of today. Factoring, or in other words, factors. Now, factors are going to be numbers that can multiply together to get another number. So multiplying together, so that can be either numbers, or in our case today it's going to be expressions. So just copy this. Factor is going to be, or factors are numbers we can multiply, and if you want you can put also expressions here. Expressions, we can multiply together to get another number, or expression. So we're going to have another definition right now in a bit, but you can put that in there if you want. You can stop the video at any time because it's a lot faster for you to stop and just kind of copy everything that we need to copy. Alright, now we're going to go to the next step. So we're going to skip multiples. You don't have to copy it, but let's just go over it real quick. A multiple is going to be the result of multiplying a number by an integer. So for example, if I told you what are multiples of 3, any answer that you get whenever you multiply by 3 is a multiple of 3. For example, negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. Negative 3 times 2, or negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. 0 times 3 is 0. 1 times 3 is 3. 6 times, or I'm saying all wrong. 2 times 3 is 6, and then 3 times 3 is 9. So basically anything that can, like any results that if you multiply, you get that number. So those are multiples. We're going to move on to what we actually need to copy. So this is also what I want you guys to copy, put it on your notebooks. We did it in class, so copy this whole thing. Now, the word that goes in the middle is going to be multiply. And I'm going to read it for you guys. So it says right here, finding out which two expressions you multiply together to get one single expression. So we're going to have to multiply two expressions to get another one. Then this is another big important thing. It's going to say splitting an expression into the product of simpler expressions. So we're going to get a trinomial, something looks like this. And we're going to go this way. We're going to go and turn it into the two factors that it's going to be creating. Alright. Now finally, the opposite of expanding or distribution. So basically just telling you what factoring is. Copy all of those. Is basically we're breaking down things. That's factoring. Now whenever we were multiplying last week, that was like distributing. Okay. So it's completely different. We're breaking it down instead of actually expanding it. Alright. Just giving you guys a heads up. Alright, so I'm going to move on. Just pause the video, copy it. And now we move on to the next step. Now we're not going to copy this one. This one's just referring. Oh my god, I'm moving it all over the place. Alright, let's move this one. There we go. Now, you don't have to copy this one. It's basically the same thing. It's going to be talking about quadratic trinomials, which is a trinomial. Nonetheless, we have all of this, which we already talked about, and this is saying factor a trinomial if facing 2 I can't even speak. Finding a trinomial means finding two binomials. Alright, now copy that one. Now binomial is going to be something that looks like this: x plus a number. That is a binomial. The reason why we call it binomial because we have 1, 2 terms. Okay, that's what we call it binomial. So we're going to be breaking this guy into 2 binomials. All right, but first we need to learn and develop a skill in order to do this. Now this is going to be probably what's going to take you guys the longest, so I want you guys to copy this whole thing right here. Now this is a previous skill. Basically we're going to go and see we can do the following things. Now it says right here, complete the diamond problems. The top cell contains the product. Now if you don't know what product means, that should means multiply. So the top number has to multiply. Contains a product of numbers in the left and right cells. So what it's saying, I'll explain it right now. In the bottom cell is going to contain the sum. Okay, so the sum's on the bottom, the product, this is add on the bottom. Okay, so let's go to number 1 and let's go over what it's referring to. So every problem is going to have a number on the top, which we need to multiply 2 numbers to get this number. Okay, now the bottom one we're going to have to add to get this number. All right, where are we getting these numbers from? Well, in this case, they already gave us the numbers. So we have 8, -8, and +12. Now, the 2 numbers on the sides, which is the -8, this guy right here, back, this guy right here, and this guy right here, if I multiply, I have to get 96, -96. But if I add them, so this guy and this guy, if I add, I need to get 4. Okay, so that's the rule of this. So we're gonna go around and do all the other ones together. So that's the first one. We already know the answer for that one is. Okay, so if I multiply, I need to get the top number. If I add, I need to get the bottom number. Let's go with number 2 right here. All right, so every problem like we work on this is gonna look something like this. Let me erase the middle part, that way we can have some space to work on here. All right, number 2. So first thing, we need to do what we call a t-chart. So we're gonna do t, we're gonna have a chart. Okay, we're gonna have 2 numbers, 1 number on the right and 1 number on the left. Now, whenever you do a t-chart, you're always gonna be looking at that number. So I need to find 2 numbers that if I multiply gives me 108. And this is really easy. You just need to remember your multiplication tables. So for example, what gives me 108? Let's start with 1. 1 and 108. Okay. 2 and 54. And we're going to keep going until we find the right numbers or the right pair of numbers. So in this case, I believe it's going to be 9 and 12. Okay, we have 9 and 12. Now, out of the 3 pairs, we're gonna have to see, because look, this is what I'm referring to. I know if I multiply this one, this one, this one, all of them are gonna give me a 108. I know for a fact. Now I have to see and look at all my 3 examples here and see which one has the ability to give me a 3. And right here is where you just kind of have to kind of think about things. Now I know for a fact that, and this is by adding and subtracting, because we need to get 3. So what we want to get is we want to get -3. But how are we going to get that? Well, we're going to have to look at the pairs and see which one, adding the number or subtracting the number, is going to give me 3. Now, I know for a fact 1 and 108, there's no way I'm going to be able to get a 3 from there if I add or subtract. Same thing with 254. There's no way I can get a 3. Now, if I look at 9 and 12, I know I can get a 3. Now, the reason is because 12 minus 9 is equal to 3. Okay, so I know that's possible. But what I'm looking for is actually negative 3. Okay, so that means one of my numbers is going to have to be negative. In this case, the one negative is going to have to be the 12. Why? Because I want the bigger one. I want to carry that negative whenever I add them. So in this case, my answer is just 9, negative 12. The reason why that's the answer is whenever I add them, I'm going to get that negative 3. Alright, pretty easy. Now let's go ahead and do another one. We're going to do the same. We're going to apply the same rule. We're going to do our table. After we finish our table, we're going to go ahead and see if we can find a pair that gives me the bottom number. So 2 numbers that give me 72. So 72. I know it's going to have to be negative, but we'll worry about that one once we do addition. So what 2 numbers give me 72? 1 is 72. 2 and 36. Let's see what else. 6 and 12. There we go. We have 3 pairs. Now we're gonna have to look at the 3 and decide which one's gonna give me that negative 6. I know 172, 1 and 72. That's not gonna give me a 6. 2 and 36. That does not give me a 6. Now 6 and 12, yes, but one of them's gonna have to subtract. Again, we're gonna look at what the sign over here is. So usually whenever it's negative, then the bigger one is gonna have to be the negative one whenever you add. So in this case, I know 6 is positive and the 12 is negative. There you go, we're done with number 3. And we're gonna keep going and doing the same thing for all of them. What gets me 25? So I'm pretty sure a lot of people are gonna go 1 and 25, 5 and 5. Now all of those give me 25, but the one I'm actually looking for is negative 25. And also whenever I add them, I need to get a 0. So I need to figure out which one's going to give me a 0 whenever I add. Now this one, it's not going to give me a 0 regardless. But over here, if I make one of them negative, and I add them, I get the 0 that I need. So that's my answer. Pretty straightforward. So whenever you're doing these problems, once you find your 2 numbers that give you the top number by multiplying, just figure out by adding which one gives you the bottom one. Let's keep going. What gives me 110? 110 is going to be 10 and 11. That gives me 110, but I need a negative 1. Again, I need a negative, so I'm going to make the bigger one negative. So if I multiply, I get negative 110, but if I add them, I get a negative 1. So I know this is my answer for this. Alright, we're going to keep going. What gives me 63? 63, we can get that by multiplying 7 and 9. Now, I need a positive 2 for this one. Alright, so that means that the bigger one is going to have to be positive, right? So I'm going to make the smaller one negative. Now, when I add them, my answer is going to be 2. So my answer is 9 and negative 7. Pretty easy. Now 7 here, 48. What gives me 48? I get 48 by multiplying what 2 numbers? Let's see, I have 6 and 8. And guess what? We don't have to do anything to this one because whenever I add the 6 and the 8, I get 14. So my 2 numbers in this case are actually positive. Pretty nice. Let's go to the next one. Negative 24. What gives me 24? The easiest one that usually comes to mind is 4 and 6. And now can I use that pair? Yes. I just need to make one of them negative. In this case, this is a positive 2. That means that this has to be the plus and this has to be the minus. So it's going to be 6 minus 4. Alright, we're done with 8. Now we need 4 more. Now right here we have a negative 32. And we're going to do the same thing. What gives me 32? So 32. I know I can do 4 and 8. This one has to be negative. That means the big one's negative and the small one's positive. So it's going to be 4 and negative 8. Number 10, what gives me 48 again? If I remember from what we did last time, it's going to be 6 and 8. Now, can 6 and 8 give me 8? No, so actually we're going to have to look for another one. Um, let's try 4 and 12. Actually, that one works. So which one has to be the positive? Well, the bigger one, because we need a positive 8. And the 4 is the negative. Okay, so we have negative 48 now. And then over here, we just have 12, negative 4. And if I add them, I get 8. Remember, the major thing that we're doing is that we're multiplying to see. Oh, we're multiplying two numbers to get this one. But whenever we get those two numbers, we're adding them to double check and see if we can get the addition to equal to the bottom one. All right, that's what we've been doing this entire time. Just in case you're not getting it, we have a couple more just to go for it. Okay, let's move it this way. 24. Now we break down 24. What gives me 24? 4 and 6. But now in this case, the 6 has to be the negative one, and the 4 has to be the positive one, because we want that negative 2 whenever I add them. So it's going to be 4, negative 6. And last one, but not least, what gives me 70? 7 and 10. Now, the big one is going to have to be the negative, because again, we need that negative 3 on the bottom. So usually when your number's negative on the bottom, the big one's going to be the negative. And this one's just 7. Alright, so we have all of them. We're going to backtrack right here. Maybe you can stop it right there and kind of look at all of those and copy it down. And that's the work that we're going to be doing tomorrow. Alright, that's factoring. We're already doing factoring without even realizing it. Now we just need to figure out what do we do after we finish the x. So this is the steps for actual factoring. So step number 1. Always check to see if you can factor out the greatest common factor, and I'm going to go over what that means right now. Draw parentheses for the binomial factors to fill in the variables. Okay. Complete the big X in the t-chart. So we're going to be doing all of this stuff in a bit. So determine what two numbers can be multiplied to get your AC, and then add them to get the B term, your B. We're going to be using the t-chart as well. And then we finally going to fill in the parentheses. All right, so we're going to be doing exactly what we did on the top. So we're going to follow the rules. So you're going to be looking at the actual number here. This one right here, we're going to be looking at it. And now, you're going to look at the numbers in front and see if all those numbers can be divisible by a number. Now, in this case, that's not it. But let's say we had a 2 in this problem. Let me go and zoom in just so you guys can see. Let's say we had a 2 in the front. And this is what they mean the greatest common factor. Now, everything, if I had a 2 in the front, everything could be divisible by 2. Meaning that I could divide this one by 2. This one could be divided by 2. And this one could be divided by 2, which would change my answer altogether. Or my problem altogether. So I would end up with x squared plus 3x plus 4. Which would be my new problem. Okay, but we don't have to do that one because we don't have any greatest common factor in this one. So we just have to work it out as it is. Now, first thing they tell us to do is go ahead, do your parentheses. So we're going to go ahead and do parentheses. So whenever you do factoring, your answer is always going to look like this. We're going to have 2 pair of parentheses because we're breaking the trinomial down. And usually, at least in this case, it might vary later. Actually, it is actually going to vary later. But first, we're going to start with just x in the front. Alright, those are the simple type of factoring problems that you're going to get. You're just going to have an x in the front, and then you're going to have stuff afterwards. So let's set up my problem. There we go. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to start filling out the big X. Now, they're telling us what to multiply, so that's not very difficult. So they're telling us I need to multiply A and C. Okay? I multiply A and C, and that goes on top. Now, what is A, what is B, and what is C? So let's label them. This is the same thing that we were doing with quadratics. So there should be a 1 in front, so that's A. The 6 is going to be B, and the 8 is going to be C. So let's multiply A and C. Okay, so A and C. So I'm grabbing A is 1, C is 8. So it's going to be 1 times 8. equals 8. All right. And then it's going to ask you your b. Now b goes on the bottom. So what is b? 6. All right. We're going to apply the same rules that we did before. We need to find two numbers that if I multiply give me 8. So I need two numbers that give me 8. So it's 1 and 8, 2 and 4, 3 doesn't have 1, and then 4 and 2. Okay, those are all the possible combinations I can get. Now in this case, we're just gonna have to pick one. Now, if I add them, I need to get 6. So 1 plus 8 gives me 9. So that one doesn't work. 2 plus 4 is 6, and also over here 4 plus 2 is also 6. Now, due to the fact that both of my numbers need to be positive, I can pick either this one or this one. Okay, it's the same thing, and it doesn't matter what order you put them in. So I'm just gonna put the first one. So it's gonna be 2 and 4. I'm done with my big X. Now, you may have no idea, but we're already done with factoring. We already finished factoring this whole thing. All I need to do is write my answers how they're supposed to look. Now we already have the parentheses already done, so we don't have to worry about that. But once you're done with the parentheses and you have your two factors, we're just gonna plug them inside the parentheses. So you're gonna grab the first one. So in this case, we're gonna grab 2 and then put them inside. Now, is the 2 positive? If it is, you put a plus. If it was a negative, you put a negative there. So 4, same thing, we're gonna plug it in. Is it positive? Yes, boom. Those are my 2 binomials, and we're done. That is my factors. And we're done. That's it. Now let's go ahead and do some other examples down here. We're gonna do this final 4 examples, and then we're done with the video. All right, so let's start with the first one. Again, we're gonna do our parentheses x, parentheses x, just like the totals on the other one. Now we do our big X. I know A is 1, B is 4, and C is 32, negative 32. All right, so on the top, I know I need to do A times C, which is negative 32. And on the bottom, I need to pick 4. There we go. All right, now we do our t-shirt, just like we've been doing so far, and I need to find the factors of 32. So what can give me 32? So I'm pretty sure 4 and 8, just like we did before. Now this one has to be a positive 4. So that means that this one's gonna be a positive 8, and that one's gonna be a negative 4. Whenever I add them, it's gonna give me a positive 4. So I'm gonna put my answers here. Negative 4, 8. And now we're plugging it into the parentheses. So the first one is 4, right? We're gonna plug in 4, and the sign is a negative. Then we're gonna plug in 8, and the sign is positive. There we go, we're done. That is my answer for that one. And that is it. That's exactly what you need to do every time. Oh, I guess, there we go. All right, we have a couple more. Now this one, same thing. We're gonna do a big X. Now we know A is 1, B is negative 3, and C is negative 18. We know we need to multiply those two, which is negative 18 on the top. This one goes on the bottom, negative 3. Now let's do a t-shirt. So negative 18. So what two numbers give me 18? 118, 2 9, 3 and 6. And then 5 doesn't have 1, 4 doesn't have 1, and then 6 and 3. Okay. Now, I need to have a negative 3, right? Which of these ones can give me a negative 3? Obviously not that one, not that one, I can pick either this one or this one. It's basically the same thing, right? So I'm gonna pick this one. Now, which one has to be the negative in order for me to get -3? Well, the big one. So that one's gonna be a plus. Okay, so I'm gonna write them. So it's gonna be +3, -6. Now, we forgot to write it earlier, but we write our answer in parentheses, right? Because we're gonna have to have our two factors. We put x and x. Now I'm gonna pick one of them, which in this case is gonna be the 3, and I put a plus. And then I'm gonna pick up the 6, and I put a minus. Those are my two factors that I just solved for. All right, let's go out to the next one. Now factor this two. Okay, so I want you guys to notice something. So basically we have x squared. We're missing this one. So we have 0x, so we don't have the middle one. And we have -36. So what is my a? My a is equal to 1. My b is equal to 0. And my c is equal to -36. So let's go ahead and work with that. I'm going to put my parentheses already because I know my answer is going to look like this. So x. We do a big X. We do a t-shirt over here. So remember, I need to multiply 1 and -36. So that gave me -36. And then this one goes on the bottom, 0. So I need two numbers that if I'm multiplying gives me 36, but if I add them, gives me 0. So 36. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be this one. And I'm going to have to make one of them negative. That is because once I add a +6 and a -6, that gives me a 0. So it's going to be -0, +6. All right, let's go ahead and write our answer. So I'm going to put the first one as a negative for me. So 6 minus and then +6 over here. And that is my answer for my two factors. Okay, not too bad. Now let's go ahead and do the very last one. Ooh, I like this one. Now, we're going to be looking at all the numbers. Now, do they have a greatest common factor? Yes, all of them are divisible by 2, so I'm going to divide all of them by 2. So that's going to change my problem. So now I have x squared plus 8x plus 12. All right, that's going to be everything divided by 2. So that's the new problem that we're going to be working with. So there's the one right there. So now I know A is 1, B is 8, and C is 12. Now we're going to write over here two factors. Don't forget to put your x's. And now let's solve this problem. We have a big X. We're going to multiply A times C, which is 12. And this number comes down, 8. So I need two numbers that if I multiply gives me 12, but if I add them gives me 12. 8, sorry. So let's go ahead and do our t-shirt. So 12. We have what? 1 and 12. 2 and 6. 3 and 4. Okay. Now, which pair can give me an 8? Obviously not 1 and 12, and neither does 3 and 4. So the one I'm going to be using is 2 and 6. So that's my 2, and that's my 6. Now we can write our answer. So it's going to be 2, and it's positive. It's going to be 6, and it's also positive. There we go. We're done with our factoring. So that's it. That's the entire video, just in case you guys missed it. That's all the notes I'm going to put in Google Classroom. That way you guys can see. Plus this on there. And so have a great day. See you guys.